KFM Hotseat. Catch the fire tonight on KFM's Hotseat. Every weekday, 7 to 8 p.m. It's hot, it's live, provocative, and digs deep into the issues. It's KFM's Hotseat. The hottest debate on all relevant topics, live on KFM's Hotseat tonight. KFM's Hotseat. Every weekday, 7 to 8 p.m. KFM's Hotseat. Only on 933 KFM.
Good evening and welcome to the Monday edition of the Hot Seat. Standing in for Patrick Kamara is me, Kwezi Tabaro. And today we're discussing the recent shake-up in the Uganda police, where the institution seems to have fallen back to its career police officers. And joining me in studio today to discuss these changes in police is my usual Monday panelist, George Musisi. I also have Mr. David Fred Egesa, who is an investigator and former police officer, as well as senior partner at KTA Advocates and political commentator Edgar Tabaro. Gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the show.
Good evening, listeners. Thank you, Kwezi. Pleasure to be here.
All right. Before we get into the topic, some news making rounds across the world and in Uganda. Of course, this morning we woke up to news of the confirmation that Iran's President Ibrahim Raisi had passed away following a helicopter crash yesterday afternoon that happened in East Azerbaijan province of the Republic of Iran. The 63-year-old political heavyweight had long been regarded as the natural successor to the supreme leader of the Republic of Iran, and that is the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. And relating it to Uganda or the region, the now departed president visited the region only last year in July. He visited Kenya, Uganda, and Zimbabwe. And while in Uganda, he met with President Yoweri Museveni. Uganda is yet to officially extend her condolences to the people of the Republic of Iran, but I have seen messages from President Ruto as well as from President Samia Suluhu of Tanzania. The other development today involving one of my panelists, today NUP President Robert Chagulanyi met with the chairperson of the Uganda Human Rights Commission over his 2018 petition regarding his cancelled music shows. Bobby Wine was accompanied by his lawyers, George Musisi, who is with me in studio, and Benjamin Katana. And in a statement he read before Miss Mariam Wangadia, he accused the Commission of bias and unfair hearing, prompting him to withdraw his case from the Uganda Human Rights Commission. Maybe in a minute, George will briefly tell us what transpired in that meeting that didn't go so well. I saw a clip on the Monitor, I think, Twitter page this afternoon. Miss Wangadia clearly wasn't impressed by the engagement. But in another update, the Uganda People's Defense Forces is on a recruitment drive. They are looking for close to 10,000 applicants to join the regular forces. That is infantry. The call is currently on until the 14th of July this year. So do visit the social media channels of the UPDF or the Ministry of Defense website in case you want to enroll. I don't think any of us in the studio qualifies, but
just a second. The chopper in which the president of Iran died was manufactured 40 years ago. It was retired. They are no longer in production. Made manufactured in Canada. Now, I have not. There's nothing like that. There's no official statement on that. But my mind quickly goes to the sanctions that were imposed on Iran, and I think the aircraft was badly maintained, and certainly not for that kind of terrain. It's also the same chopper in which General Gola died in Kenya. Although the one of General Gola
was a more recent model.
No, 2016, but it was a single propeller. In Uganda, our head of state is very, very careful.
He only uses the Mi-24.
Yeah. It's maneuvers better.
In a minute.
But really, before you come to George, I'm really very sorry. And I hope we learn our lessons. Sanctions.
Sanctions literally cost life.
Literally, Literally, they cripple you, they're insidious. And I'm really sounding this very loudly because we are going to talk about changes in the police force. So the issue of sanctions, particularly the man you're going to talk who's going to
Are you
talk.
threatening
I
me?
know sanctions are now his tool.
But George Musisi, in a minute, what transpired at the Uganda Human Rights Commission, and why was the commissioner?
The Uganda Human Rights Commission summoned my client
with your conduct.
Summoned my client to appear today for a hearing on a complaint which was lodged in December 2018.
And your client is Robert Chagulanyi?
Yes, Honorable Robert Chagulanyi. And the basis of the complaint was that they had blocked over 26 of his music concerts, and he was saying that police has stopped my right to earn. It's violating my right to earn a living. And they attached all the evidence, the bookings, the cancellations, the musical equipment confiscated. So upon hearing, or when we came, the Honorable Chagulanyi requested to make a personal statement, which was allowed. And the statement was making two strong statements. That one, hearing my complaint for a violation almost 5 years, actually over 5 years later, is almost a violation in itself. Actually, before we walked in, Dr. Kebi was walking out and he told me that he has...
Dr. Kebi is Dr.
Kizza Besigye, yes. He had a similar, another complaint. And he told me that he had a complaint which he filed in 2001, which has never been entertained when he was arrested at the airport. Pulled off a helicopter. So, and our point is taking years for a specialized tribunal without hearing, leave alone giving judgment. Because even a hearing would take ages, and then judgment is in itself a violation. But then the other point is that over time, more serious violations have occurred, which worse than even the cancelled concerts, missing people, extrajudicial killings, arbitrary arrests. And the commission has either paid a deaf ear or its partiality has been brought into question, because one time we had the chairperson saying, these things of missing persons at Chiwan. So they're saying that in light of the time taken and in light of the bias you've exhibited, we don't think we can get justice. Of course, he trialed. The chairperson didn't let him read. Yes, didn't let him read even more than 3 paragraphs. She acted like we've already seen her with anger.
She acted with anger.
Yes. She couldn't let him express himself. Of course, she had to order us out of the room. And of course, before ordering us out, Mr. Chagulanyi went on record and said my complaint was for those reasons withdrawn. And I don't think that I can get justice. And then even if it was a mockery that you can invite me for a hearing 5 years later.
I want to stay with you. So where does Honorable Robert Chagulanyi seek recourse next?
Well, recourse can be sought in many other areas, including courts of law. The essence of Human Rights Commission ordinarily wouldn't even go to the High Court if Human Rights Commission was functioning, if these tribunals were working. But the mere fact that a person, a human rights violation is not like any other remedies. Because you are saying I've been beaten, for instance, I can't work, I'm seeking compensation, and then I take 5 years without a hearing. In itself, it's a mockery. So if a hearing is to come 5 years later, maybe judgment comes 5 other years later, then maybe the compensation comes. So it's a mockery. So
actually, under the law, if I may, under the law, the practice of the courts, when a matter of human rights nature comes to its attention, it's given precedence over all other.
There are even timelines under the Human Rights Enforcement Act. There are timelines now that it has to be.
So in essence, you're saying you will pursue other alternatives, including going to the courts of law. Sure. But we'll discuss that later in the week, I'm sure, in our topical shows. But to the subject matter of our discussion, the recent appointments and deployments within the Uganda Police Force. There's a letter here, I think dated May the 18th, which is about 2 days ago. We wish to inform the public that His Excellency President Yoweri Museveni, President of the Republic of Uganda, who is also Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, has made the following appointments and deployments in and from the Uganda Police. Key amongst them, the new Inspector General of Police is IGP Abbas Byakagaba. Deputy Inspector General of Police is James Ochaya. And then the former Deputy Inspector General of Police, General Kasigazi, goes back to the UPDF for deployment. Major General Abel Kandiho, who was the Chief of Staff, I believe,
Chief of Staff of Police
within the police, has been redeployed to President's office as Senior Presidential Advisor, and many other appointments that follow.
In the new
the most important Edgar,
stuff is not
yes,
there anymore.
yes.
And he was the first holder of that office.
That's why I wanted to go to a former policeman.
Maybe it was personal to hold.
This is a very
Police officer.
Police officer.
They take exception. Kwezi. They take exception to be called policemen.
Your apologies. I want to come to you, Mr. Egesa. What did you make of the changes? Because they are significant in many ways. One, he has mentioned the position of chief of staff and many positions that made the police structure a replica of the army structure have been done away with. And for now, within the mainstream of police, we don't have serving military officers. So many of these are career police officers.
Thank you so much. Good evening, listeners. Of course, I've been shouting our voices hoarse. There are two things which were done which kind of destroyed our domestic security setup. One was the destruction of Special Forces, Special Branch, which was a domestic intelligence kind of network. The second one was to take police as if it is not a discipline, as if it's almost like any other possibly guesswork. That anybody can become a policeman overnight because the president has appointed him, and you can see the mess. In fact, what have we achieved in that type of direction? Of course, the system used the September Commission to condemn and demonize the police. So in the process, they brought in the army. But by design and training, army men are not they are not designed to handle
policing work.
Exactly. They're not civil in training. They are almost like they take command. They are told to look at the enemy and then they will
neutralize the enemy
against the enemy. Yeah. So that's how they are designed. Now, if like when they came in, of course, Katumba tried because Katumba is a bit civil. He's a bit simple and he's a bit nice. Kaihura made it the worst, of course. And for him it was right, because if you think someone is an enemy of the state, you have to deal with him without fear or favor. That's AME design. That's the AME training. Now, policing has never been guesswork. Policing is a discipline.
It's a science.
It's a science. Here these days, I think they're even awarding degrees somewhere, because you have to go. You have to work it out. You have to be the policeman. You have to be designed and raised as a policeman, from policeman to a police officer. Now, in this case, you just bring in someone and you put him above and high, and in the process, he brings in what he thinks is policing. So, guess that kind of design.
Policing by guesswork.
Exactly. That's why you see that so many things have literally gone wrong. We have over militarization of domestic security. We have too many guns, and in the process, even thuggery has literally increased. Why? Because we're not touching the right node. The right node is not touched.
I want to follow up on that one. It's the same president who introduced the army into police that is now leading a clean sweep of the police, ridding it of soldiers. Has he learned from experience that you actually need policemen to do police work?
I'm very sure that he has learned, but of course the damage has been done. One, we have militarized the people. People today do not fear to attack a gunman. Two, several army officers who have been deeply into civil security have kind of got corrupted. They have gone into deals, they do this and the other, just because we allowed them to have touch with the public as if they are a civil force. Yes.
Interesting. We'll take a short commercial break, and when we come back, I'll ask my other panelists to chip in with their take.
The hottest debate on all relevant topics, live on KFM's Hot Seat tonight. KFM's Hot Seat. Hot Seat. Hear the real story behind the story. Coming right at you. Only on 933 KFM.
Welcome back from the break. You're listening to the Monday edition of the KFM Hot Seat. Standing in for Patrick Kamara is me, Kwezi Tabaro, and today we're discussing the recent changes in police and the return of career police officers to police command. Continuing with the changes that were announced late last week, we also have AIGP Nwajira John, who is now director of the FFU, that is the Field Force Unit. AIGP Twaruhukwa Erasmus, he is the director of research and planning. AIGP Kali Fadil is the director Fire and Rescue Services, while SCP Waswa David is director counterterrorism. SCP Kafero Moses, I think he was Prior to that, Kampala Metropolitan Commander is now Director Human Resource Development and Training. Gentlemen, I'll start with you, Edgar. What do you make of the changes? I know in the last segment you did hint at sanctions and how serious they are. Do you think this is a signal from the president or the establishment here that, look, there have been serious repercussions for us militarizing the police? As the guest has mentioned, it's ended up militarizing our politics, our civil affairs, domestic security and all that. And maybe it's time we return to civilian policing.
If you've done scenario setting based on experience in the last series or cycles of elections and electioneering, and given a population that is increasingly agitated, a population that feels increasingly alienated from the public goods, public service, public goods, as in what the citizenry should be enjoying. You're under an electorate which is largely a young whatever population. 81% of our electorate now, by the time the campaign start, 81% of our electorate will be between the age of 18 and 30. So you can imagine, even you, Mr. Crazy, you're already outside of that age bracket. So you can imagine that you're still a young man. You're a young man in terms of, at least compared to age. So, we are having polarization in our politics. We have extremism that is emerging on either side of the political divide. You have cultic leadership emerging. Bobby Wine is a near cult. His adherents.
So how do the changes in police address this?
And you've seen the Western world, particularly America and Europe, beginning to take punitive action against what they consider to be rogues. And the rogues are now targeting particular persons so as to cripple regimes. And in the House of Lords, you had, I've forgotten one of the lords, one of those titled with hereditary titles in the British society. That's a very highly coveted position.
What did the Lord say?
He was saying that he was pushing for regime change in Uganda, and identified one of the leaders in
the opposition.
In the opposition as a potential,
ally to work with.
Not just to work with, to make president in the Republic of Uganda. So I'm only speculating.
Try to relate it to the changes in police, because yes, you make a point about sanctions. Because two military officers who are deployed in police have been sanctioned by the US, and that is General Kandiho and General Kale Kaihura. So the president, in essence, is reacting to the sanctions and appointing.
What comes to my mind? I mean, we're only speculating. We're not in the president's mind. I think he's retooling the police and returning it to carrier police persons, carrier police officers. I know Abbas Byakagava, Afande Byakagava. I first met him when I was a teenager in Fort Portal, where I was regional special branch officer. Then I later worked with him as counter-terrorism director. He's a very collected person. Believe me, when
you worked with him, what were you doing?
I'm a lawyer. I'm a practicing lawyer.
To clarify.
He was in charge of counter-terrorism, and I'm a practicing
Edgar, please
lawyer.
respond to my questions on this show.
No, he's a regime change agent. So when I talk of counter-terrorism, he gets worried. And principal regime change agent.
Edgar used to be
Please make your point, because I have to come to George.
So bringing in these persons, first of all, they are old hands at police, and particularly a person who has had a background in special branch, he understands the operations of police, tactics, and strategy, and he has leadership skills. So I think he's redirecting police from a paramilitary group into a civil force to handle policing challenges as we go towards 2026. Now, the army will be strictly for defense of our sovereignty, defense of our territorial integrity.
And police will do police work.
Police work.
I want to come
that's what I
want to come to
that's
you,
what I
George
read into
Musisi.
it.
In the early 2000s, President Yoweri Museveni was reported by one of the dailies, I think it must have been the New Vision, that if policemen in Uganda were to vote between him and a jerrycan, they would most likely he'd lose to a jerrycan. So do you think over the last 20 years, as a result of this statement, the president, or at least the authorities in Uganda, have been trying to cut police to size by deploying cadres and military officers to basically undo the DNA of police, and now they think they've cut it to size because the Uganda police force today is not the police force we had at the helm of Kale Kaihura up to 2018. There's certainly been a diminishing in its stature. Diminishing in its stature. From the police under Kale Kaihura in 2018 that was enforcing everything, was dealing with the George Musisi. Now a lot of that work is being done by the army and CMI.
Commissariat work.
Of course, President Museveni, at the core of his politics, thinks that the army is the solution to many of the things. Actually, if you take it,
he doesn't know any better. He's a military officer.
But he's been in politics for a long time. He would have dealt with politicians. He's been in politics for over 50 years now.
60 years.
But if you look at even the civil service, there's been a militarization of the civil service. I think there are about 3 or 4 accounting officers who are soldiers.
So ministers who are serving officers as well.
So are ministers who are serving officers. So the militarization of police, of course, President Museveni thought that the best solution was to bring in the army. Of course, for him, that is his go-to solution.
Default.
When Operation, what was it called, NADS, failed, he said, let's bring in the army. So that has always been his default position. And when the police came in first under General Katumba Amala, then General Kaihura, of course, General Kaihura expanded even the reach. General Kaihura made it like an armed wing of the ruling party. He made police look like the enforcement wing of the ruling party. That's why he was doing political work. He was doing intelligence. He was doing, and I remember at the height of the fallout between the coordinator of intelligence services then, General Sejusa, who fled to London with that letter. I remember him retorting that even in the intelligence budget was slashed and was all put under police. So we've seen an increasing militarization. But for me, I see militarization in 2 fronts. The militarization in personnel and the militarization in action and training that Mr. Gesa was talking about. And for now, whereas I applaud that, yes, it's a step in the direction, but I will hold my guns in celebrating because I have seen policemen also who are militarized in actions. So whether this is indeed a change, to quote the words of those famous words, a fundamental change, it will be seen in the actions. Because increasingly, even in the last election, even in the all actually 2016, 2011, 2006, we've seen police being the enforcement agent of the and of course coupled with other security agencies. The riots which broke out in November 2020 after the arrest of Honorable Kyagulanyi Nluka, the arrest was superintended by Fande Mwesigwa, who is now the director of operations. It wasn't an army man who commanded that operation. So for me, I think whereas
the deputy IGP then was an army man.
Yes, the deputy IGP was an army man, and I'm saying that it's good to start with the personnel. Of course, mindful that there are some soldiers who are still left in police. We know that the director of CI, the powerful director of CI, is still a soldier. Yes.
Crime intelligence. We know that I think Brigadier Goloba is still also in police. He has left.
Okay, then we have the commander CID. I don't think he's a career police officer.
Magambo is
from intelligence. Yes, but please make your point.
So the point is whether there has been, or whereas it's good that personnel and we have seen career police officers at the helm because policing work is different from the army work, like Edgar says. But we've seen a militarization in action, and even we will not celebrate when police officers are doing what ordinarily has always been done by the army.
Thank you, George. I want to come to you, Mr. Gesa. Having traveled the region, one thing that strikes me is how militarized Ugandan society is. Just to give you a perfect example, you travel to Tanzania or Kenya, countries that share the same history as Uganda, were all colonized by the British. The structures of our police are the same. When you land at the airport in Nairobi or Dar es Salaam, compare that to when you land in Entebbe. As soon as you get off the plane on the tarmac, there is a counter-terrorism guy wielding a machine gun. Inside the, passport control, inside the building, the lobby of the airport, you have armed policemen
Well,
all over there. In Entebbe, yes.
Even at,
You have
at the revenue, is it the customs?
Customs, yes. You have
find the counter-
with an AK-47 in a room.
Two. Mean looking.
So, yes, we may change personnel at police, but can we walk back from this militarization of all aspects of security?
Thank you so much. It will be a process because today every government vehicle has a right of way. Every several vehicles, you'll see in most of the vehicles you even see someone with madoa.
Madodo is camouflage uniform.
Trying to whoever has any other small car is
that's
literally
FFU. Madodo is FFU.
No,
there is
army green.
So you can see that almost the ministers have been militarized. The office, the government drivers. We are in a kind of. By the way, there are times I sympathize with His Excellency. It's like there are times when I think that he's doing this, is kind of running this state alone. Because when you look at his programs, he's so much now like that African statesman that is so busy trying to help and sort out several other issues from different countries. But internally here, once the president calls you and gives you an assignment, anybody who talks to the president becomes
a power unto themselves.
I'm sorry to use this word. He becomes a power center. He takes his photograph, he puts it in the office, and I'm telling you, look at some of these units. You look at yes, there is so much power fragmentation and misuse, and this is bringing kind of an abuse to the person of the president.
That is posturing.
But also security is not just what you project, because I was going to respond to that on my way here. In the traffic, were accosted by one of the judges, and you would have thought this is a warlord somewhere in a war zone in South Sudan. There are these mean-looking counter-terrorism guards. There's a lead car in front. There's a follow car. Yes, I know this is a judge who's supposed to be protected, but should protection be overt like that? Yes.
The conduct. When you look at all this, you wonder, why do we put this nation into a kind of a front line? There's so much. I think several projects have been poorly studied. There has been no research at all. We look at Thagari now. Why is Thagari here? Just because intelligence has kind of fallen in. Once crime is a monster. It will always come in when it is well fed. What does it feed on? It feeds on laziness of intelligence correction. So basically, I think that as much as the president wants to do the best, he cannot do it under the circumstances. Not until he really authors studies and researches about what should be done now. Look at our cameras. Almost, three-quarters are non-functional. So why are thugs shooting and killing everybody on the road? Just because they know. In fact, we talk about this because the thugs know much more. Now, under the circumstances, that means that I think the president is kind of rethinking what he could have been where he could have been lied to, and now he realizes that no. I think if I'm to have a civil society, I should rebuild a civil kind of force to put it back where they are. Otherwise, if we are to we'll bring in as many guns, because you need one gun to deal with Kampala where there is good intelligence and that kind of civil behavior. And you need all the guns to deal with a very small portion of an area where you don't have good intelligence. Here people have taken intelligence as if it's magic. We have tried to tell them, listen, build civil intelligence, deal with the people, build it from...
Intelligence networks are nothing without the people.
Exactly.
And the civil population is very critical, because they're the ones who
provide the information.
And strange movement of people.
Information is with the people.
With the people.
How do you harvest it?
Special branch. That was.
But that's what I guess I was talking about. That we seem to have our understanding of security seems to be more overt than anything else. So you think in terms of hardware.
We are much reactive. If something small and you are seeing all 10 cars going there with all the guns, but when someone has hit you and he has taken, how did Museveni manage to put away a bottle? He was very surgical. He was he would come in like hit his target, he goes away. Now, the reaction
of
the abuse, and so many things. Anything reactionary in security is not the right thing to do. So I think
let me give you an example.
In a minute,
you remember when we had an attack from ADF in the Semliki Valley, and Kwezi come from the same area.
This is November 2022.
2022. You remember it is actually the Diko Lumu was able to succeed because of is it Diko? Who was just been transferred as the commander?
I think that's
Diko Lumu. He was able to react quickly from Muhoti to get to Semliki. It's quite a distance. It's quite a distance, and you have to go around actually. Although Muhoti is really Semliki is just below Muhoti, but you have to go around. The road is not direct. Remember it was the LOCs and the what? The local community that even actually pinpointed where they had gone hiding and the points at which they were crossing the river.
So the population becomes very important.
Very critical. Now, when you brutalize the population, believe me, you are doing things the wrong way.
You're listening there to Edgar Tavaro, partner at KTA, and my panelists. We'll take a short commercial break. When we come back, more of this discussion.
KFM's Hot Seat. It's hot. It's live, provocative, and digs deep into the issue.
KFM.
The hottest debate on all relevant topics, live on KFM's Hot Seat tonight. KFM's Hot Seat covers all the relevant topics every weekday, 7 to 8 p.m.
Welcome back from the break. You're listening to 933 KFM. Standing in for Patrick Kamara is me, Kwezi Tavaro, and today on the show we're discussing the recent changes in police that saw the return at the helm of police of career police officer Abbas Byakagaba, who is now the Inspector General of Police, and he'll be deputized by James Ochaya, who is also another career police officers. Military officers who had recently been appointed within the Uganda Police Force have been redeployed. Some as senior presidential advisors in the case of Major General Abel Kandiho, who has been the chief of staff, while others still await deployment within the UPDF. Joining me to discuss these changes in studio is George Musisi, who is a human rights lawyer and partner at PES Advocates. I also have David Fred Egesa, a private investigator and former police officer, as well as Edgar Tavaro, who is a senior partner at KTA Advocates. Gentlemen, I think I will start with you, George Musisi. Looking at the trajectory the Uganda police has been on for the last, let's say, 24 years since the introduction of army officers at the helm of the police, don't you think as an institution, in terms of material, they've significantly improved? Whether it's in the clothing of individual police officers and men on the roads, equipment, anti-riot gear that you had so much, mobility capabilities, and all that. But on the other hand, the brutalization of citizens, the militarization of the force, as we're discussing earlier on. Sometimes when I see some of these police officers guarding government buildings, you'd think Uganda is at war with itself.
Certainly, there have been.
So, can we make? Do you think this progress has come at the cost of having a civil police?
It's an irony. It's an irony. I recently read General Katumba Mala's autobiography, and he was talking about the state in which he found police. And indeed, there have been tremendous developments in terms of even personnel numbers have grown. Training has improved.
No, training in operations, not the other.
in the science of policing.
General Kaihura even took it a notch further in terms of.
I think by the time he left, the police budget was at about 600 billion.
Yes, but also the irony is that most of that budget didn't go into the welfare of the police. Even today, police officers appeared before the Public Accounts Committee, and issues of welfare were one of those. There's even a High Court judgment. My brother, an advocate, Stephen Kallari, went to court over police welfare, and of course, court said, you didn't bring a comparative budget to show. So there's been improvement in terms of even professionalizing of the police in terms of running. The biggest problem, its Achilles heel, has been at partisanship in politics. And then secondly, it has concentrated so much on political policing. I think General Kaihura perfected this, that he concentrated so much on political policing that when real crime came, he didn't know how to deal with it, because sometimes he could create his own crime. You say, the opposition has got to burn the city, So I was reading.
Not true.
I was reading the annual crime report of police for last year. If you look at the crimes, murder, homicides, I think police couldn't take to court. It could only take to court less than about 30%
Even the
of the crimes which were reported. Leave alone even convictions, but those which could be taken to court, where they have apprehended some people, about 30%, actually less than 30%. So Ugandans would love to feel police more when it comes to actual crimes. There are not so many of us here. If they broke into your home and they stole your TV, how many of us would go to police report hoping that it will be tracked and found? You can only go there for purposes of getting that document, which many people require. So for me, I think that you even said that we hate the anti-care so much. I don't hate it because public order management is good. But my only problem with it is that it's partisan. Public order management is partisan. It's only meant to prohibit. Yes. So the biggest challenge is that, one, despite all the professionalization, despite the increments, we've not seen that in terms of fighting crime, an improvement in fighting crime. The Ugandans would love to see that. Then welfare of the policemen and men. And then secondly, you know how they were abandoned out of Naguru the other time, saying they are going to build a satellite city about 7 years ago. Up to now it's bush. So and then the partisanship in politics, and that is why people look at it, many opposition people look at it as an enemy, because it has tended to come in as an enforcing side of the armed wing of the area.
Yes, I want to stick with you before I come to Edgar. We're entering an election cycle. Are you people in opposition more confident now that, since we have policemen at the helm of the police, that maybe you will have more civil interaction with them, because we had a very bloody election in the last cycle?
I want to give them the benefit of doubt. Remember the last time the National Unity Platform had a tour, and it had a few successful rallies. General Kasigas, that going IGP.
It had very many successful rallies.
Well, a few is comparative. If you have planned 8 and you get 10, then those are few.
George, I want you to stick. But this is last year.
Yes, that last year. General Kasigas came up with a communique banning them, saying, there was an accident in one of your rallies, so I've stopped them. You can imagine if you stop a public gathering because there's been an accident. So I want to give them the benefit of doubt to see how they react. But then secondly, and of course comparatively, you remember General Kaihura was very famous for Nalufenya. Most of the torture and the abductions, me and some other lawyers even took him to court in 2016. And we have seen a reduction in that. Incidentally, now it shifted to the army. The safe houses resorted back to Mbuya. So I know I've represented several people, Edgar, who have come out of Mbuya, several, over 50. And
your time is almost up. Please conclude your point.
So I want to give them Mr. Byakagaba and group a benefit of doubt. But like I'm saying, I'm watching with bated breath, because sometimes it's not just about personnel.
Interesting. Edgar, your response?
Well,
do you think there will be a change in conduct of police, the way they manage policing during election cycles? Because I think what has not changed is that President Yoweri Museveni is going to be the incumbent in the next election, and surely he has not gotten more popular in the last 5 years.
Yes.
So police is going to have quite a hell of a job on their hands.
I like to put it in to make my submission against the backdrop of the stated position of the opposition. The opposition would like to take power at all and by any cost. They made it very
means you meant
means by any means possible. By any means possible, which also includes
a violent uprising.
Which opposition do you speak for?
I mean, it's a stated position.
Stated by who?
One of the opposition leaders has made it very clear.
You mentioned him.
And that's how they're going to what? How many opposition leaders are there? There's Dr.
Edgar, I think you should be answering the questions coming from me, not George.
So by all means possible, they're going to remove the regime. And also the regime seems to be prepared to retain power by all means what? Possible. Now, when you have such a position, you really need a sober mind to be in charge of the police that is going to be at the helm and at the front, the face of what? Face of the state, because they are the law enforcers. Now, when you have such a situation, I think you need really sober minds. You need persons who have a background in real policing. And Byakagaba, especially his time in counter-terrorism, he did a tremendous job. He did a tremendous job compared to his predecessors, and he was working under very difficult conditions, as you heard Mr. Gesat detailing how police had changed his face. So and the bit about him is he's camera shy. He's camera shy. He will not be all over the media.
But so was General Kasiga's.
Yes, and you see, when you are camera shy, you don't make mistakes before the media. No, I don't want to mention names.
It's a special branch product.
I can help you name names.
No, please, make your point.
When we are aged and very old.
And but then police, the IGP gives a command and the rest what? You don't go before the media. And the police are trained to take command instructions. Believe me, they are trained to take command instructions. So if his strategy, tactics and strategy and operations are this way, they will cascade down to the what? To the last guy. Now, if the head has a paramilitary training, if the head is a political commissar, the same strategy is going to cascade up to the what? To the constable. So if he has a background, and he's a good leader.
But Edgar, you've lived in this country, and you fairly
for the
better part of your life, fairly politically aware, and you talk to decision makers in Uganda. Do you think being at the helm of an institution like the police or the army, you really exercise free will or a free hand?
But no, let me tell you, there are things
that if the president wanted something done, you'd step in and say, I will not do it as IGP.
When it comes to a security operation, it's the person in the field who determines the flow of things. And in security operations, there's covert and overt what? Operations. Now, many times, the reactions are instant. The reactions are in split seconds. And the split-second decision can have a ripple effect on the whole country. You remember when they arrested the Katikiro and Kayunga, and the cameras were all over. It triggered a what?
A riot.
Now, how you arrest a person is also dependent on your training. A soldier is trained to neutralize. Some of these arrests don't have to be very dramatic. You just give a person summons. Come to CPS, we record your statement. Then you release the person on a police board. Now, on a particular day, when the
cameras are not around,
you charge him and take him to Buganda Road. And that really depends on one's training. But if you're out there to go and brutalize people, if you're training, your background is that on brutalization, believe me, that's how you go to
finishing
now,
the job.
Abbas Byakagaba would surprise me if he acted in that kind of manner. It's not the one I know.
Mr. Gesa, I want to come to you. Of course, beyond political policing and who is at the helm of police, there are systemic challenges that the force continues to deal with. Number one, first of all, is even the definition. Should it be a force or a service? Because the use of force in its name also contributes to the militarization.
It's a force performing a service.
Yes, but you know, in the region in Kenya, for example, I think it's the police service, the GSU. Yes, even in Tanzania, it's only in Uganda that it's a force. But there are serious and corruption challenges.
Some of them you find squad. This squad,
yes,
like squad, very scary.
But Mr. Gesa, the systemic challenges. One is corruption within the force by officers and policemen and women, but also corruption at the institutional level, that police circle budgets are being misused, part of the police budget being diverted to political activities and things like that. Do the current leadership or the leadership that has been sent at police, do they stand a chance in addressing some of these issues?
Of course, let's say that now, for now, we believe we have the right person. And of course, when you look at corruption, what's corruption? Corruption is a process of working negatively. In Uganda, we're all aware that, more especially Parliament knows that policemen cannot survive on their salary. So how do they supplement? How do they supplement their living? A policeman gets 700,000. How much does an MP get?
How much does an MP get from
those of NRM and opposition? All of them in that direction, they have been corrupted. Why? They know that we are sending these boys guard us. These boys are supposed to implement ABCD. But look at the budgets. They give them the very minimal means of surviving in an upright manner. They do not.
I'm sorry to cut you short, Mr. Gesa. You right that you mentioned the politicians. I'm told one of the most lucrative deployments is to be part of the guard unit or whatever it is for VIP protection, because the allowances you earn are significantly higher than your salary. So there's an incentive for police not to do policing work.
The MPs have surrounded themselves with a lot of money, loose money to throw around. Why? Just because they have not planned adequately for the police. Like I've told you, a policeman has like maybe 5 children. He also has a home or everything. He does not have. They don't have special schools. They don't have
special markets.
They don't have duty-free areas where they can pick ABCD. So, but at the same time, there is a demand that they have to almost work for 12 hours and sometimes overtime. Now, in such a manner, we definitely know that we are sending them to misbehave. We're sending them to survive. We call it initiative. They go and do so this setup of policemen being indisciplined is not by their choice, but it's almost like by design,
created by circumstances.
Yes, because all of us have looked around when these guys are on the road. Now that's why you see them creating a lot of things. Every morning they're picking so many borders so that they can take their children to school. They do so many other things.
Some traffic officers hide in bends such
around after the light, so that you kind of overrun the light, and then that's how he's surviving. He's a hunter. A policeman wakes up to become a hunter because he has no other alternative. So when you talk about corruption,
and do you think these people at the helm now, having been career police officers, they will understand the needs of the ordinary policemen?
They will do, but if they are not supported by the houses by the budgets and so many other things, they may try their level best, but I don't expect so much if they are not supported.
Okay. George, you'll have the last word on this one. In your NUP manifesto, I don't know if there was anything about police welfare.
Certainly, all security officers.
And what would police look like under NUP?
Actually, NUP had a suggestion that the minimum for every police officer should be 1 million, minimum payment.
And where will you raise that in the budget? Because our current force is about 40,000?
If you noted earlier that police budget has increased over time, but you should go to where most of that money goes. Most of that money goes into anti-corruption gear, into public order
anti-corruption gear, anti-riot gear.
Anti-riot gear, anti-protest gear, because
you're dealing with a militarized population. Do you think Ugandans will overnight turn into angels and NUP?
Anti-riot gear is a response to a threat.
Of course,
remove the government.
Of course, the governance
by all means possible.
You know,
a threat invites.
You leave Edgar alone.
I've given you the last word on this. So what would
and I'm saying that earlier I noted that police has become an enforcement agency of the regime, of the government, of the NRM government. So
and it has been effective at that. So why would NUP want to change that?
Listen, Kwesi, and part of the reason is that most of the budget of all security agencies are affiliated into even intelligence, into political intelligence, into quelling. Sometimes even if there are no political threats, we create our own threats. It has happened so many times. So that is why it's so easy to find the budget to keep over 1,000 policemen at a home of patrolling the streets of Kasangati, for instance, yet you cannot even put a coat of paint at the police station of Kasangati. So the point is that there is a direct relationship between governance and the welfare of the police. That if you improve governance, certainly the other issue would go. You won't have need.
Everything else.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much, George.
But the other point, just a quick one.
Thank you very much,
what Mr. Gesa was saying.
For being such wonderful listeners, we'll be right back tomorrow with an even.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
On all relevant topics live on KFM's Hot Seat tonight.